Okay, good morning, you beautiful New Zealanders, not Aotearoa rights. I want to talk this morning about this whole issue of Maori Tikanga law being introduced to New Zealand and how dangerous it is and how wrong it is and how we should oppose this strongly. So Gary Judd is a KC, King's Counsel, and he wrote an article about law students at the Auckland University being made to do a compulsory course on Tikanga Maori. That's Maori law, Maori religion, Maori philosophy, and how wrong it was. Now, you'll remember the real estate agent who was forced to do, all real estate agents in New Zealand have been forced to do a course on Maori. Now, I've done an analysis of that course. It is nothing but brainwashing. It's propaganda. It's grooming people for tribal rule, which is coming to New Zealand, according to Maori, by 2040. And that's in the Hei Puapua plan Maori have laid out. So all of this, I would call it Maorification creep, where bodies within New Zealand, like the nurses, the police, the real estate agents, the lawyers, are all being told they have to do compulsory courses on Maori religion. Tikanga, that's what it is. This is completely wrong. But let's just read this together. The Dean of the Law School at Auckland University School of Technology is someone called Kylie Quince. And I'll put a photo of her up in a minute. This is Gary Judd talking. He's a King's Counsel. I have been sent her social media posting in which she has, over the Law News headline, Senior King's Counsel files complaint about compulsory tikanga studies for law students. She's written these enlightened words. So Gary Judd wrote that he was opposed in a legal document, magazine. He wrote that he was felt that compulsory tikanga studies for Maori for law students was wrong, and so he wrote about that. And the Dean of the Law School, Kylie Quince, has written back and responded to Gary Judd saying, this is nonsense and it should not be happening. She wrote this: I suppose it is inevitable that one of the old racist dinosaurs would make a pathetic squeal in an attempt to preserve the status quo. Can you believe that? She goes on, Mr. Judd and his Matarangi Maori is not science friends can go quietly die in the corner. This is the sort of people who are coming into prominence in New Zealand. Now, what's happened is that, how did she get to be the Dean of the law school? Well, during the time of Labour put Maori people in charge of everything. They tried to get Maori in positions of leadership into all government paid bodies in New Zealand, and they managed to do it by and large. So Gary Judd writes this in response. He said, what sort of lawyers will be produced by a law faculty led by someone who resorts to petty abuse instead of engaging in rational argument? And of course Gary's right. This lady, Kylie Quince, should really have responded to Gary Judd's article or his complaint with rational argument, saying why Tikanga Maori should be made law. Why did she not explain why Tikanga is law? Why did she not explain why a body of law built up over centuries for the purpose of testing whether a custom should be accorded the status of law must be jettisoned because Tikanga cannot meet those standards? In other words, he's saying Tikanga Maori is just Maori religion. It should never be made law. Because if it's made law, then the only people who can interpret the law are Maori. which means you could get screwed over every time something happens in this country where the law is concerned, and you can just be screwed over because it's the Maori who interpret what Tikanga Maori law means. Imagine that, the corruption that's going to come with that, which is what Gary Judd's on about. Why did she not answer these matters raised in my complaint to the Regulations Law Committee? No, she didn't do that. Responses like these, like those, these are the ones above here. Responses like these kind of responses, a pathetic squeal. Look at it, a pathetic squeal, an old racist dinosaur. What can they do? They can go quietly, die in the corner. Responses like these could have been expected from a person holding a privileged leadership position. In other words, a dictator. As it is not the response given, the inference may be drawn that she does not have answers which support her position. They don't have answers. That's the big thing. What they do not have answers, these people. They just say, you're going to believe it, and that's it. You're going to do this, and that's it. That's what dictators do. They force their will on the people, and you've got no choice. And that's what these people are doing. The law school deans and member of the Council of Legal Education, Miss Quince, became interim dean in 2021. Presumably, that means that she was one of those responsible for this breach of the human rights of potential law students. Gary Judd says this is actually a breach of the human rights, forcing Maori religion on students. Section 13 of the Human Rights Act, or the Bill of Rights. Whilst compelling those who wish to be lawyers to have sufficient knowledge of criminal law, the law of contract, torts, and so on, it is a limitation on their freedoms. It is a limitation which can be demonstrated justified in a free and democratic society. If a person wishes to engage in the practice of law, they must be possessed of adequate competence in the core legal subjects, which is what he's just outlined. It is quite different. It is quite a different thing to compel them to receive indoctrination. There's the key word, indoctrination, in a system of beliefs and values held by one section of the community, that's Maori. So Gary calls it for what it is. This is indoctrination. And it's grooming the entire country that's going on. When you see Maori in the news, newsreaders using Maori road signs, Maori signage on buildings, Maori inside all government departments. What is all this? It's nothing to do with the preservation of the Maori language and culture. That's their cover. That's their smokescreen. The real reason for all this is its heavy grooming of this population in our country to get us ready for tribal rule. Miss Quince has such absolute conviction in the rightness of her position that she will happily employ compulsion instead of reason, and those who disagree must go die quietly in the corner. In other words, they're just going to force it. She employs compulsion. To those wishing to take up the law, says Gary, I say try and find a university with a faculty whose leadership has greater respect for the tradition of law as a reasoning discipline. Well said, Gary Judd. Okay, we'll leave it there because tomorrow I'm going to look at tikanga and what it is, and how bad it is, and how it's got to be resisted at all costs into New Zealand.